Good evening, I'm KHU11 Meteorologist Chris Ramirez, and you just saw that lightning currently over downtown Houston. We are tracking some heavy rain still falling across town. The good news is that these storms are weakening as we progress through the evening, but we're looking at wet roadways as well as some ponding on roadways in some locations. We had a little bit of a window within the past hour that caused that water to drain off some. So the good news is that we are seeing some good signs of these storms weakening as we progress through the evening. However, we're still going to remain under that weather impact alert here across Houston, at least until 9 o'clock this evening, as we're seeing still some heavy rain. Definitely turn around, don't drown, don't drive through those flooded roadways, because we could still see some of that ponding in some locations. Here's a look at radar right now. We're tracking some heavy rain right now moving through Houston proper. That is currently moving through downtown. We've saw quite a bit of lightning within the past 20 minutes. Now we're seeing that lightning sort of just become more isolated in nature, and that very well is giving us more of a sign that these storms are weakening as we get closer towards the 9 p.m. hour. So as we go closer towards maybe between 9:45, the National Weather Service issuing that flood advisory that's still in place until 9:45. So definitely keep that in mind as we're still seeing some additional rainfall expected to be within the next maybe 10-20 minutes. And so good news, storms are weakening. Roadways are still wet and hazardous, and we are expecting those conditions to remain mostly just a bit on the more treacherous side if you are choosing to drive out along those area roadways for this evening. So as we look at the number of lightning strikes, we were looking between 250 to 300 lightning strikes with these storms about 15-20 minutes ago. Now we're looking at 80 lightning strikes within the past 10 minutes, and that really is just a good sign that the storms are weakening. However, this heavy rainfall could really well still give some ponding on roadways. So looking at the 6-hour rain totals, we've gotten up to radar indicated 3.5 to 4 inches of rainfall, especially out in northeast Houston. There's areas that are in portions of downtown that have likely received up to 3 inches of rain. I'm going to go ahead and plot those rain accumulations here so we can see what we're looking at in terms of the rain that we received here within the past hour. 4.3 just north of downtown. That's along I-45. And so we did see reports of some high water spots. I think that there was an area near I-45 and 610 that did have high water. That, of course, has been cleared as water has been given the opportunity to drain as we had a window of no rain activity. But we're still tracking that as we go into the next maybe hour or so, that these storms are going to start dissipating and becoming less widespread as we get closer towards the 9 o'clock to 10 p.m. hour. So weather impact alert is still in place. Keep in mind that we will have another round of possible afternoon storms for Saturday afternoon, and we are expecting those conditions to remain mostly just unsettled for this weekend. So if you have any of those outdoor plans, you might want to get those done in the early hours of the day, because once we head closer towards maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, I think we could see some lingering showers starting to move inland by the noon hour. So keep that in mind as well. If you are traveling maybe outside of Houston, we could still see some of those widespread heavy downpours in place as we progress through the weekend and becoming more isolated in nature, at least through maybe Sunday and Monday of this coming week. But looking at tomorrow, the Storm Prediction Center still including a large portion of southeast Texas under a marginal risk for flooding. So it's going to be like what we saw today. We're going to have those brief periods of heavy rainfall that could give some ponding on roadways. But for the time being, the good news in all of the storms that have fallen this evening, we're seeing that opportunity. We're seeing those storms weaken, and we're seeing less of that lightning. I believe it was a lightning show within the past hour, and now we're seeing less of that lightning, which is a good sign that the storms are weakening. But heavy rainfall still in place for portions of central Houston in terms of looking at inside the loop. So heavy rainfall falling in northwest side of town along I-45. You're still seeing a bit of lightning there as this storm is now approaching the 249 corridor out towards Tomball and Cypress. So Tomball, Montgomery County, we're also looking at some heavy rainfall out along southern Montgomery County. So just keep in mind that there are some spots that are receiving quite a bit of rain as well as some dangerous lightning. But it's the flooding threat that we're really going to have to keep an eye on as we progress through the evening and through the night hours. So expecting those conditions to remain mostly just active in terms of the lingering rain for this evening. But the good news, less lightning. The storms are becoming less intense, and we are going to start seeing that water drain off. I don't think we're looking at too much of a concern in terms of major flooding going on. I think we're just looking at that potential road flooding, especially in those low-lying areas that tend to always flood. So keep that in mind if you are traveling out and about for the next maybe couple of hours. I think it's just one of those evenings that you just want to just stay indoors and not really be out in this treacherous weather, especially for our Friday nights, because we are expecting these showers to still linger at least through the next hour. However, once we head into next week, we do have incoming high pressure that is once again going to bring back the heat and the humidity for next week. That is going to bring back those triple-digit temps, maybe for some of us as we head into Wednesday. So the heat once again returning for next week, but we're just tracking these downpours as they continue falling across Houston, but we are seeing this become less widespread, and we are seeing these taper off. And now we're also seeing these were slow moving earlier this evening. Now we're starting to see them pick up speed a bit as the loss of daytime heating is really causing these storms to become a bit weaker. However, National Weather Service is still continuing that flood advisory at least until 9:45 this evening. And so definitely keep that in mind that all of Houston is included under this flood advisory. So you could be looking at some lingering ponding on roadways in some locations, but rain becoming lighter in nature and less heavy as we progress through the next maybe hour or so. And we're going to be tracking that rain chance as we go into the weekend, as we're also going to see some cooler temperatures. This rainfall bringing us cooler temperatures, but the humidity in full force, and that is likely to continue to bring us those feels-like temps and those heat indices in the hundreds as we head into the next few days. As far as your 7-day forecast, highs in the 90s, lows in the 70s, rain more isolated in nature for Monday, and then the heat wave once again returning for the middle of the week, and we're going to be tracking even more rain chances as we go into Thursday and Friday of this coming the end of the week there. So looking at the situation for right now, we are tracking these downpours that are becoming less widespread, and so the thing to keep in mind is that roadways are still pretty hazardous and slick, and we could still looking at some possible ponding and flooding along some area roadways as we progress through the evening. Of course, we're tracking the latest, and make sure to tune in at 10 o'clock for the KHOU 11 News 10 p.m. newscast. Of course, I myself with Lynn and Mia will be giving you the latest news and weather headlines. Be safe out there.